337 bills have passed the state Senate and Assembly this week. That's according to the great reporter Dan Clark at the Albany Times-Union. You should definitely follow him. But some major ones, climate change bills, social media restrictions for kids, those are not among the ones that passed. So the legislature still has work to do. And some surprises are building tension between Governor Hochul and some state lawmakers. We sum up the political moment in Albany on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Friday, June 7th. First up, border agents in Canada are preparing to go on strike. But it may look a little different than what you might expect, as most still have to show up to work. NCPR intern Zach Jaworski reports.
Crossing the border may become a hassle if Canadian customs agents can't come to an agreement with their government. The Public Service Alliance of Canada, the union that represents the agents, says that they'll begin striking if a deal isn't reached by 4 p.m. on Friday. However, since most border employees are designated as essential, their strike won't involve them leaving work. Instead, they'll participate in a form of labor protest called Work to Rule.
If they decide to do work to rule and use their discretion for every last person coming through the border, they can slow the border to a crawl. They can just practically shut it down.
That's Ian Lee. He's a professor of management at Carleton University in Ottawa. Lee says under Work to Rule, border agents would drag out crossings by asking as many questions to travelers and commuters as possible.
Do you have any alcohol in your car? Do you have any guns in your car? Prohibited fire weapons. How much did you spend? Where did you go? They can ask you everything, anything.
Lee says the inevitable slowing of border traffic due to the potential demonstration would impact more than just civilian border crossings.
It will have an enormous negative impact on the economy, on the business sector, and all those truckers driving across every day. About $1 billion a day is coming in across the border.
Union Representative Mark Weber says he is not concerned with slowing down cross-border commerce.
We had a strike back in 2021 where we saw land borders. There were 10, 11-hour lineups. It was pretty extreme, and we got tremendous support from business community, from the trucking industry. We're the people who are there every day keeping trade flowing back and forth. They want to see this brought to a resolution as well.
The Public Services Alliance of Canada wants the government to compensate border agents the same as Royal Canadian Mounted Police, be able to retire without penalty after 25 years, and gain protections around discipline and contracting out. Weber says the union plans on keeping negotiations open.
We're hopeful mediation works. We're meeting hour by hour and getting updates on what's happening there and, hoping for the best.
The Canadian government says that they are disappointed in the union for threatening labor disruption when they are, quote, prepared to make concessions. In a Wednesday statement, the Treasury Board said they will not tolerate any, quote, unlawful job action. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Zach Jaworski in Canton.
Mountain Lake PBS in Plattsburgh will host the awards showcase for its annual Student Film Festival tomorrow night. Organizer Logan Brody says Beyond the Peaks is a program for youth and teachers that connects them with professionals as they make original films over the course of the school year. Those undergo a formal judging process in the spring.
And after that, we celebrate all together with a red carpet showcase where we show a selection of the nominees and winning films. We congratulate all of our student filmmakers, and we'd love to recognize them in that way.
This year, almost 200 high schoolers from New York and Quebec submitted more than 60 films. The genres range from thrillers and documentaries to public service announcements and an open category. Brody says the festival gives students a platform for filmmaking and digital storytelling.
These are really underrepresented art forms in rural communities like our own. So we want to give those students an opportunity to showcase their skills, to build those skills, to understand that there are career pathways in media and the arts, that professionals in these fields exist here in our communities as well.
The Beyond the Peaks Student Showcase begins at 7 tomorrow night at the Strand Center Theater. It's free and open to the public. final hours of the 2024 New York legislative session have been dominated by a growing rift between Governor Kathy Hochul and some top Democratic state lawmakers. It's over the governor's decision to halt congestion pricing in New York City. The New York Public News Network's Karen DeWitt reports.
Lawmakers have agreed to a measure to reduce plastic packaging by 30% over the next dozen years, and they were prepared to vote on a bill to ban algorithms on children's social media feeds and prevent big tech companies from collecting kids' data. But those items were overshadowed by Hochul's decision on Wednesday to pause indefinitely the June 30th implementation date of congestion pricing in New York City. The policy aimed at reducing gas-powered vehicle emissions and helping to fight climate change was going to be too expensive for commuters to bear, the governor said.
After careful consideration, I have come to the difficult decision that implementing the planned congestion pricing system risks too many unintended consequences.
Many Democratic lawmakers on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley praised the governor's decision, but other progressive-leaning Democrats called it a political betrayal and predicted that the decision would backfire on Democrats who are facing close races in several congressional elections in suburban districts. The governor's announcement angered one of the most powerful Democratic women in the legislature, Senate Finance Committee Chair Liz Krueger. She represents a district in Manhattan where the toll gantries have already been set up to impose the $15 fee and where her constituents welcome the change.
She's got to reverse herself on this. This is a terrible decision.
Krueger says the reversal came as a shock, especially after the governor just last month highlighted New York's commitment to fighting climate change at a climate crisis summit held by Pope Francis.
She just went to the Vatican to talk about her commitment to climate change. I don't think this was part of the discussion with the Pope, that she was going to reverse herself on one of the most important environmental decisions that we were counting on.
Krueger says she believes there is grounds for a lawsuit against Hochul's decision, but could not say who might bring legal action. The governor, who has not spoken publicly since her pre-recorded announcement, is also proposing a payroll mobility tax. It would be imposed on New York City businesses, and it would make up for the $1 billion a year that congestion pricing was to have brought in to finance the MTA. Senator Krueger says there is not enough support among Senate Democrats to approve a new tax on businesses. Senate Deputy Majority Leader Mike Gianaris also condemned the governor's decision. He says the legislature could act to authorize that the $1 billion gap be filled later in an unspecified way. But he says the payroll tax for businesses is dead on arrival.
I think it's safe to say the idea of a payroll mobility tax just for New York City is something that we think is a horrible idea.
Gianaris says with just hours left to go in the session, it's too late to hash out any type of complicated refinancing bill. The dispute delayed voting on final bills. As a result, lawmakers are expected to go into the weekend to finish their business before adjourning for the year. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt for the New York Public News Network.
We have more news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. If you can't always listen to the show on the radio, try listening to it as a podcast. It's free. You subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. I use Pocket Casts. And then Story of the Day downloads automatically. You can listen whenever you want. You binge listen a few or even listen when you're in a cell dead zone. If you want to learn more, go to ncpr.org/podcasts. Music today by Eddie Lawrence of Moira and Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam. Have a super duper weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.